Welcome to what Avengers Age of Ultron should be about, where we don't just speculate about what should or shouldn't be in the movie, but we go ahead and actually create the movie itself in a version that is half fan fiction and half an effort at prediction. Before we even get started, let me just say that unlike many of my other What It Should Be videos that I've done, where there's a pretty good chance that a lot of those movies are not going to turn out that good, that's not the case here with Age of Ultron. Because Marvel has consistently shown that they make awesome movies, so the odds are this movie is going to be way better than the version that I'm creating here. So this video isn't me trying to lecture Marvel about how they should do their movies, because they know what they're doing. This is rather more of a salute to the amazing cinematic universe that they have built up. And it's my way of helping to add to the hype and the anticipation to help promote this movie. So without any further ado, let's begin. The movie opens with wires and circuitry weaving together inside a machine as the camera follows these electrical highways through this intricately designed computer hard drive. As the camera works its way out of the circuitry, we realize that we're seeing the inside of an Iron Man mask, which then slowly transforms into something else. The opening scene has Captain America perched on top of a mountain in the Austrian Alps, staring at this grandiose castle built on a mountainside. He's joined by Black Widow and Hawkeye. Are you sure that he's in there? Positive. This is it, Captain. He's the last remaining member of Hydra. Pretty soon it will all be over. Don't say that too soon. There's a reason he's outlasted all of his predecessors. He always has an ace up his sleeve. Well, this time so do we. The three of them draw their weapons and begin to make their way down towards the castle. Cut to inside and we see a Nazi standing by a vat of bubbling metallic goo. When suddenly our heroes drop down from the roof and surround him. He stays fixed on the spot like a statue. Captain America approaches. Baron von Strucker, the last leader of Hydra. Time for you to finally answer for all the innocent lives you've taken. It should work out at about a 500-year sentence to think about what you've done. In the meantime, you can think about this for me! Ugh! He throws the shield and it cuts right through Strucker and he shatters into pieces like glass. A voice echoes around the room. All these years and you still don't understand. If you cut off the head, two more will spring up in its place. Out of the shadows slinks a young guy and a girl. Hawkeye draws his bow and the guy blurs into a flash of colour that swipes across the room past Hawkeye and Black Widow, knocking them down. Captain America smashes this guy with his shield, flooring him on the spot. The girl's hands glow red and she blasts waves of energy at Captain America, searing into his shield, pushing him back across the room. The guy goes to get up when Hawkeye pounces on him, grabbing him in a chokehold. He flails around trying to get free and then zips back and forth across the room, throwing Hawkeye off. Black Widow starts shooting at the guy, but he zigzags across the room, dodging the bullets. He grabs her by the wrist of her gun hand, and she slams the other hand into his chest, zapping him with those cool electrical palm things that she has in the comics, but never seems to use in the movies for some reason. And she brings him down. The girl sees this and fires a bolt of energy at Black Widow. It's intercepted by Captain's shield flying past it. The shield deflects the energy into a wide spray that obliterates half of the wall. And everyone's about to start fighting again when thunder cracks across the sky and a bolt of lightning flies through the hole in the wall, hits the girl. Thor lands in the center of the room. Hawkeye zip ties the guy's hands, and Captain sees through the hole in the wall a figure running away. Black Widow turns to Captain. Go get him. We can handle this. Captain jumps through the hole in the wall and runs after von Strucker. The girl floats back up to her feet again. Her whole body is now radiating a red glow. Thor smiles at her. Not bad. Hawkeye finishes the zip ties. Black Widow says to him, don't worry about his hands, tie up his feet. Then the guy jumps up. Both of them try to tackle him, and he starts zipping around the room with them hanging off his back. The chick's throwing energy, Thor's deflecting it with his hammer, just all this craziness going on. Cut to outside, Strucker, the real Strucker I mean, not the one that broke apart like glass, which I'll explain in a minute, is about to jump into one of those Hydra helicopter things when Captain America runs him down and they start to fight. And we see that Strucker is pretty damn spry for an almost 70-year-old Nazi. But Captain manages to subdue him through hero-ness. And back inside, all this craziness is still going on. And Thor just says, enough! He grabs the girl in one hand, he grabs the guy by the other, and just cracks their heads together, knocking both of them out. Now, fans of the comic will probably already know this, but for those who don't, let me just fill you in with the behind-the-scenes stuff. The twin team of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in the comics are actually mutant, just like the X-Men, which is where their powers come from. And their father is Magneto. Yes? Him. Seems simple enough, right? Not quite. You see, the whole movie rights to the different characters that Marvel has is scattered all around different studios. Marvel has Avengers, Sony has Spider-Man, Fox has Fantastic Four and the X-Men. However, Quicksilver is a character that for some reason both Fox and Marvel still own the movie rights to, so even though he's not exactly a fan favorite, both studios are stubbornly shoving him into different movies just as a way of telling the other studio to stick it. So the end result being there's going to be 2 movies coming out with 2 Quicksilvers played by 2 different actors. But this poses a problem for Marvel in explaining how the twins are able to get their powers because they can't say that they're mutants, and they can't mention their father either. So I'm going to be interested to see how Marvel's going to tiptoe around that, but I've just made it that Baron von Strucker is their father and they're Inhumans. Inhumans are basically people who have touched this sort of crystal thing that gives them powers. So their abilities are more magic based, and magic does seem to be the direction they're going to with Phase 3 of Marvel, with a Doctor Strange movie down the road and more focus being on Thanos. But we'll save more of the Inhumans details for later. Inside a fancy New York restaurant, Tony Stark is having lunch with Bruce Banner, and they're chatting about this massive project that they've been working on over the last year. And Tony says, "You've been going real good with your, anger problems. It's good to be busy. It keeps my mind focused on good things." "Well, our work's pretty much done now. What are you going to keep busy with now?" "I don't know. I'm sure I can find something." "No need, buddy. I've already got you covered." He points across the room, and in walks Pepper Potts with Betty. Betty is Bruce Banner's girlfriend and the only person who can actually calm him down when he seriously hulks out. She has been played by different actresses in the previous 2 failed attempts to make a Hulk movie, and it's still not clear as to whether the Mark Ruffalo Hulk is a continuation of those movies but with a new actor playing Hulk, or if those movies are cut from canon and this is an entirely different Hulk. I actually think that Ruffalo's Hulk is a continuation, they just don't want to directly say that because the last movie sucks so much. But where we find Ruffalo at the beginning of the Avengers and where we left Edward Norton at the end of the Incredible Hulk, they do kind of line up. Hulk is separated from Betty, living in exile and hiding from the military. So the assumption that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk has history with Betty and now can reunite with her, as he seems to have his anger under control now, should work. But I'm going to use the actress from the first Hulk movie because she's better looking than the other one. I'll leave you guys to it. You got a lot of catching up to do. He walks away and Betty sits down and they start talking. Tony joins Pepper and they walk outside. Pepper looks through the window and sees they're holding hands and goes, "Oh." She turns back around and Tony is down on one knee holding up a diamond ring and she's like, "Oh." "Pepper, will you marry me?" Yes, I will." The next day at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, all of the Avengers assemble again for the first time since the first Avengers movie. I'm taking a bit of a risk making this video now because as of the time of me recording this, Captain America Winter Soldier hasn't actually come out yet. So if you're watching this after Winter Soldier has come out and there was some big piece of information in there that would affect the Age of Ultron movie, I have no idea about it. So I'm going to assume a couple of things here. I'm assuming that Fury will not be killed or thrown out of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Winter Soldier, as some of the rumors have said he might. So I'm guessing he'll still be around in Age of Ultron. But if he isn't, then just swap Samuel L. Jackson for that chick from How I Met Your Mother. And I'm also assuming that Captain America and Black Widow have developed a little bit of a romance thing going on by the end of Winter Soldier. Not a proper relationship, but a bit of a vibe going on. And that Captain will be a little bit disillusioned with the whole shady government agency thing and how that contradicts his pure notions of freedom and the American dream. Especially after everything that's happened with the Winter Soldier himself. But like I said, it hasn't come out yet, so I could be wrong, and I could end up looking like a massive idiot in making all of these assumptions.
And everyone knows when you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and umption.
Fury stands before them all and says, "I've called you together because as part of our defense strategy, I need you all to be fully informed of our defense systems. The Avengers are our last line of defense against threats to our worlds, and I would like to introduce you to the first." He nods to an offsider and all the monitors spring to life, showing different corners around the Earth, displaying a network of satellites hovering above. Captain steps forward. "What is this?" Dr. Eric Selvig answers, "We call it Ultron." Now, as most Marvel fans already know, in the comics, Ultron was created by Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man. But Joss Whedon has announced that while there is an Ant-Man movie in the works, Ant-Man will not be in the second Avengers movie. It seems pretty clear that they're going to have Iron Man be the one to create Ultron, rather than Hank Pym. Of course, a lot of the Ant-Man fans are upset about this because it's like one of the biggest things that Ant-Man ever does. But I can understand why they would make this change, because in the movies, for most people that aren't familiar with the comics, they know Tony Stark as the tech genius of the group. So if they suddenly brought in Hank Pym and were like, yeah, he's also the greatest techno-whiz of all time, and that's why he created Ultron, everyone will be like, well, that's ridiculous, I've never even heard of this guy before. So it does make sense that they would switch to Iron Man because the audiences are familiar with him. But for anyone who doesn't know, the key element to keep in mind with Ultron is that Hank Pym created this artificial intelligence, which then become one of the most dangerous things the Earth has ever seen, so Ant-Man always kind of carries with him this guilt for being responsible for this creation, which in this movie will now be transferred over to Tony Stark. He hits a few buttons and the room fills with dozens of holographic controls. And this giant holographic robot head appears in the middle of the room. And this robotic voice speaks, taking everyone by surprise.
Ultron system online, operating within specified parameters.
Doc explains to all of the Avengers and the audience that Ultron is the most sophisticated computer system of all time, and it controls this network of satellites. And these satellites are there for one primary reason: to stop portholes from being opened on Earth. So what happened in the first Avengers movie in New York can never happen again. With this new Ultron system, no one can open up a portal to bring an army through again. Or more specifically, Thanos cannot do that again, as he is clearly what we're pushing towards in Phase 3. And this system has been built by a collaboration of Dr. Selvig, with his knowledge of wormholes, Tony Stark, with his knowledge of AI, as seen in Jarvis, and Bruce Banner for his knowledge of biology, which will come into play a bit later. So as well as being a protective wall to stop portals from opening, Ultron also serves as a lookout, and all of the satellites are constantly scanning space to see if anything is coming their way. Additionally, each satellite is equipped with a couple of Iron Man's concussive blasters that he has on the palms of his hand, just so that the system can defend itself against any rockets or attacks that try to blow them out of the sky, either from Earth or from space. Captain says, how can S.H.I.E.L.D. afford to put so many satellites up? Rocket fuel is pretty expensive. Thor raises his hand timidly. Yeah. It's good to finally have my feet on the ground. I don't know why, but I just like the idea of Thor having to carry all of these satellites up into orbit just so that S.H.I.E.L.D. can save money. So even though Thor, he's a demigod, he can't get around the bean counters. The Doc also explains that Ultron is so special because the satellites are capable of repairing and maintaining themselves, so that now that they're up in orbit and operational, no one will have to go up there to fix them again, apart from a once-a-year trip to deliver needed materials up for the repairs. So they do have one rocket ship as a backup just in case Thor isn't around to do the heavy lifting. Fury then has a bunch of little gadgets handed out to everyone that are kind of like pages, and he tells them to keep them all close at hand. So that way, if Ultron detects a portal trying to open or sees something coming at the Earth from across space, they all get an alert immediately and they can spring into action. Fury says, thanks to Ultron, we can all rest a little easier knowing that our world is much, much safer. Let's hear it for Ultron's designers, Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, and Dr. Eric Selvig. Everyone gives them a round of applause and are all generally pretty happy with this new system. We now find ourselves worlds away in the realm of Asgard. Idris Elba is at his post by the Bifrost, and he looks fixated on something in his infinite vision, when up to him walks Odin. If you've seen Thor the Dark World, which I'm assuming that you have, it ended with Loki using his illusion type thing to transform into Odin and begin ruling in his place. So Odin here is actually Loki. What happened to the real Odin? They didn't actually show us in the movie, but we'll cover it in a bit. Also, it's true that Joss Whedon has said that Loki won't be in the Avengers 2 because they want to broaden out to some new villains, but I'm hoping that he is being at least a little bit cagey there because Loki's awesome. I can't get enough of him. And even though he might not be in the movie as a main villain, I'm still hoping that he'll at least make a cameo. So I do have a little bit for Loki to do here in my version. So Odin asks, you called, what is it you see? I see something unlike anything I've seen before. A new form of life that is living and yet not living. Which realm? Midgard. Midgard? Earth. There hasn't been any new forms of life there for millenniums. It's stranger than that. It's growing in strength every day, yet its intentions are unknown. As Earth is your son's new home, perhaps he should be informed. Thank you. Later that night at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, which may or may not be the helicarrier, depending again on whether it's been smashed in the Winter Soldier or not, there are a few agents working the late shift. The Ultron face is on the main monitor when it seems to look over to a console on the side of the room. Right then that console shorts out and spits out a bunch of sparks before dying. The agents go over and take a look saying, must have been a power surge, let's see if we can fix it. While their backs are turned fixing the console, all of the monitors change from their regular display to profiles of the Avengers, and the screens begin to scroll through them at a very fast pace, and we see that they're being uploaded into a file within Ultron. Then, when that's completed, a file called the Sentinel Initiative comes up showing dozens upon dozens of tanks and mini jets, all of which are drones that can be controlled by remote. Those are also downloaded into Ultron, and this completes just a few seconds before the agents turn back around, and when they do, the monitors have returned to normal. Zooming into Ultron's face on the monitor, we go back into that same kind of shot from the beginning of the movie. We follow wires, circuitry, we bounce around through radio towers, across phone lines, until we exit from one of those beeper gadgets that Fury gave the Avengers, and we see this is the one that was given to Tony. It's on the bedside table next to Tony and Pepper sleeping. The device begins flashing red, and we see the Java system in the home turn on, and its usual blue color slowly begins to change to red. This is followed by the same kind of file download that we saw back at S.H.I.E.L.D., but here of all of the Iron Man files. One of the files that comes up is of the Iron Patriot suit. As you may recall from Iron Man 3, at the end Tony Stark very stupidly blows up all of his Iron Man suits, which is something that really bothered me, because without his suits, his role as an Avenger is pretty much pointless, because now he can't go into battle with them anymore. If he does, he'll get splattered within seconds. Now I understand the point of what they were trying to do there. They were trying to make it that he's Iron Man even without the suit because the hero part comes from him, not from the technology. I get that, and that works on like a spiritual level for Tony himself, but the whole reason that he had crippling anxiety issues in the first place was because of the knowledge that there was an overwhelming force out there hell-bent on destroying Earth. He was the only one who went through that portal and saw that army, so he's the only one that really understands how close they came to total annihilation. In Iron Man 3, having had time to process everything he saw, he knows that although they might have won the day, the war was far from over. They might have managed to dodge a bullet that time, but Thanos will come back, and the next time the Avengers might not be able to stop him. That knowledge is what drove Tony Stark over the edge and drove him to build so many suits, because he knows they are completely outmatched. So he has a damn good reason to be anxious. And that's why the movie's resolution of his anxiety problems, the whole realization of, I'm Iron Man even without the suits, that just doesn't work. Because yeah, that might help Tony personally, but it doesn't change the fact that there's an endless army of Chitauri looking to overrun the planet. You know, the whole reason why he got anxious in the first place. Why would he blow up his suits if he still knows the threat is out there? If someone's pointing a gun at your chest, that's not the time to take off your bulletproof vest. And that's exactly what he did at the end of Iron Man 3. However, as fumbled as the handling of Tony Stark's issues were in that movie, his destroying those suits does help to set up for the creation of Ultron in this movie. Because he still wants to defend Earth, but without any of his suits, how is he going to do that? Ultron. But this also means that since he blew up all of his suits, there is only one left, the Iron Patriot suit. I'm pretty sure that didn't blow up with the others because Rhodey was wearing it at the time, so if it had, he would definitely have been killed. We end this scene with a kinda creepy moment of the Ultron face appearing on a monitor and staring at Pepper Potts. Returning to Loki, we see him in the middle of a barren wasteland. The subtitle reads, Niflheim, Realm of the Dishonored Dead. Loki enters a peculiar structure built on a floating island that floats off the edge of a cliff, and inside is Odin, sitting in a chair by a fire. So Loki has transported Odin to the Realm of the Dishonored Dead, because it's a place where no one would ever expect to find Odin, and because Loki doesn't really want to kill his dad, because he's not that evil, he's built this house on a floating island, so none of the Dishonored Dead ghost people that inhabit that realm can get at Odin, so that he can be safe there and live in exile in relative comfort. When we see Odin, we see that he is deteriorated really badly, withered away and on his last legs. The two of them talk for a little bit, and after a few moments of silence, Odin begins to open up. Loki, do you remember when I was in the Odin sleep and you brought Laufey, the king of the frost giants, in? Loki looks down at the floor. I remember it like you remember a dream after you wake. I don't remember the details, only the emotions. How it felt when I saw you strike down Laufey. Loki looks up. What did you feel at that moment? Many things, but most of all, pride. because despite everything that had led to that moment, then, in that moment, you were of Asgard. He walks over and touches Loki on the shoulder. Thor has had to walk a path to learn humility and compassion. You have had a different path to walk. It's been unclear to me previously, but now I think I understand. You've seen the face of our true enemy. Loki nods. Thanos. His armies will sweep across all 9 realms, won't they? Yes, they will. Do you think you can save Asgard from destruction? Yes, I believe I can. Then become the man you were the moment you struck Luffy down. Become the king that Asgard needs you to be. Protect Asgard. Whatever it takes. They finally embrace as father and son, and as they do this, Odin starts to slump a bit, and then he just drops to the floor. Loki catches him. Father! And with that, Odin dies in Loki's arms, and it's a big fat R.I.P. for Anthony Hopkins. As Loki holds Odin in his arms, something happens. This white light blasts out from Odin and into Loki. It's all of Odin's power being gifted to Loki so that he can be the king and save Asgard from Thanos. In the comics, Loki actually murders Odin in order to get his power, and once he gets it, it drives him insane, and eventually Thor has to take him down. So this here would be a good setup for a third Thor movie after Age of Ultron, if they want to do something similar. However, I've made it that Loki didn't kill Odin, Odin just died naturally of old age, and Odin's power was given to Loki rather than Loki stealing it, because movie Loki is kind of more of a cool guy, anti-hero, rather than a straight-up bad guy. So having him murdering his father and stealing his power, that's a little bit too heavy for the movie version of Loki. Back at S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury is talking to Black Widow. How are our guests doing? Well, the twins seem to be behaving themselves, but Strucker is not quite so cooperative. What's he been doing? Oh, he faked an illness, and when the guards opened the door to his cell, he took them down and tried to escape. How far did he get? Just to the next door, and then they gassed the place. Hawkeye's down there now, been interrogating him about what's left of the metallic goo. It's not going very well, though. Fury thinks things over for a moment. Perhaps we could switch it up a bit. I'll take care of it. But you said the twins were behaving. Do you think with a more friendly approach you could turn that good behavior into cooperation? Maybe. What exactly is it that you want from them? We already know quite a bit about the metallic liquid that you found when you caught Strucker. It's ultra-strong vibranium. Once it's forged, it's unbreakable by every means we have. But that fake Strucker that Captain smashed, it was made out of the same metal, but it broke easily. If Hydra or any other group start using that metal as armor, knowing how to break it could be very useful information for us. I'll see what I can do. Cut to the dock and Bruce Banner working on Ultron. Captain America walks up and says, "Tell me more about this technology," which he says purely so that I can back up the exposition truck and dump all of the information that we need into the story. Because Ultron requires a lot of explaining, and I'll be curious to see how Marvel manages to explain everything without just having the exposition truck backing up and dumping information on the audience. I certainly don't know how else to get the information out there. Okay, Ultron in the comics is an artificial intelligence that has become self-aware and builds himself a body. His body is built out of adamantium, the same kind of indestructible metal that Wolverine's claws are made out of. But obviously they can't say adamantium because again it belongs to X-Men, which is over there at Fox. So that's why I've made it ultra-strong vibranium, which is what Captain America's shield is made out of. So Ultron, on top of this, while he's externally this indestructible metal, internally he is basically an ongoing nuclear explosion. So this gives him super strength and near invulnerability. Add to that the same kind of concussive blasters that the Iron Man suit has, a special weapon called the encephalo ray that puts people into an instant coma, and the ability to teleport himself from place to place, as well as telepathy, hypnotism, mind control. He's a seriously dangerous threat. He does have even more powers than that, but Joss Whedon has said that they're going to tone down a lot of his powers because otherwise he kind of becomes magical. So likewise, I'm going to keep his abilities to strength, invulnerability, different types of concussive and blasters, including the encephalo ray and teleportation. Now, how does he get all of those abilities? Well, what Doc and Banner explained to Captain America in this scene is that with the satellites that Ultron controls, due to the need for them to be able to maintain and repair themselves, the Ultron system has to be able to not only assess what's wrong if something's broken, but actually come up with a solution of how to fix it. This means Ultron has to be able to think more like a human being, to be capable of problem solving, outside the box kind of thinking. This need would explain why Ultron's cognitive functions were based off of a human brain patterns to give Ultron the capacity for creative thoughts. And it also explains why the human whose brain patterns are used for Ultron has to be Tony Stark. Because who can improvise and create new technology with limited materials better than Tony Stark?
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
So that's why Ultron's brain patterns are based off of Tony Stark's brain patterns, and that's where Banner's expertise as a biologist came into play, because he knows about brain chemistry and all that kind of stuff. So it's explained to Captain that the Ultron satellites can repair themselves with these mechanical tentacle things that serve as various tools. And when they have necessary materials flight up there once a year by Thor or by the rocket, they only need to deliver them to one satellite, and then that satellite distributes them to all of the others via a beaming device. What? Yes, a beaming device. Isn't that a bit far-fetched? Well, not really, because since they had to do all this research into wormholes, in order to know how to stop them from opening here on Earth, naturally they would learn a little bit that would help them to open a small one for a very brief period of time. Not a big one, just a little teeny tiny one.
That's what she said!
Michael, please. Please.
Mwah!
Plus Thor, now that he has made Earth his home, since that's how Thor the Dark World ended, no doubt he would have shared some of his knowledge on the Bifrost, which is basically a massive wormhole generator. So it's totally not a big deal that they could build little teleporters to pass the materials around from one satellite to another, but they're not yet able to build one powerful enough to teleport the materials straight up from the Earth, but they are working on that. So Captain America is wowing about all this new technology, when Banner kind of pulls him aside and says, "I've been meaning to ask you, I know you went through a lot with the war and you've had to readjust to modern life." Yeah. Well, at what point did you know that you were okay to reclaim your old life? Well, that's just it. You can't. I had to realize that I could never reclaim my old life, so instead, I created a new life here. But it's not the same though. It never is. But that doesn't mean that it can't be just as good. Banner looks kinda troubled. What's on your mind? Before I had my accident with the gamma rays, I was with this girl. She meant a lot to me, but after the accident, I didn't think we would ever see each other again. But just recently, she's reappeared in my life. But the accident still changed me. I'm not the same person that I was. Banner sits down, and Captain takes a seat next to him. I know what you mean. The war changed me too. I'm not the same person as before. But I'm a new person now. And so are you. Give yourself a little bit of credit, man. You've done some great things in New York, here with Ultron. You've come a long way. If anyone deserves a second chance, it's Bruce Banner. And what about the other guy? You've come a long way in handling him as well. Captain smiles to himself. Besides, if the other guy gets out of hand, I can always kick your ass. Banner grins. Oh really? Hell yeah. It would be an epic beatdown on your bright green backside. They get up and start walking away, kind of shoving each other. Nah, I would totally beat you. No way, I would smash you into the ground with your own shield. You never catch me, I'd be too fast. We then transition to a military base where soldiers are patrolling in front of a hangar. Cut to inside the hangar, this fancy techno vault door activates and opens, revealing the Iron Patriot suit. The suit comes to life, activates its thrusters, and smashes through the roof of the hangar, flying away. Inside the helmet, the display scrolls through files until shield files on the metal goo that Von Strucker had appears. Down at the shield base where the metal goo is being kept, the suit lands in front of the building. Some of the shield guards run up. Freeze! The display pulls up audio recordings of James Rhodes and starts chopping and splicing them together at super fast speed. Stop right there! Don't come any closer! The suit speaks to them in Rhodey's voice. Stand down, Commander James Rhodes. Open the door. The shield guards look at each other confused. We weren't expecting you, Commander. I need to speak to Director Fury. It's a matter of national security. Yes, sir. Would you mind opening the mask so we can see your face? The suit pauses for a moment. The mask opens and... Oh, sorry, sir. After what happened on Air Force One, we need to make sure. They holster their weapons. The face stares silently at them. Let us get the door, sir. They go to unlock it when the door opens from the inside, and out walks James Rhodes. Wait, what? The face inside the suit dissolves into a holographic image and then vanishes. The suit slaps the guards out of the way and starts shooting everything. The real Rhodey runs inside to avoid getting blasted, and the suit takes out the last of the guards and then slowly walks inside. It smashes its way to where the metal goo is being kept when Director Fury appears behind it, sneaking up with this weird kind of gadget thing. Rhodey creeps in next to Fury, and the two of them do some military-type hand gestures where Rhodes is saying, "I'll draw his attention, you shoot." Fury nods. Rhodes starts to work his way around to the other side of the suit. Without even turning its head, the suit raises its arm and fires a shot at the crates Rhodey is behind, sending him flying across the room. Fury jumps up and fires his grappling hook. The suit ducks, catches the hook, and throws it back at him. It pins Fury to the wall and fries him with electricity. Both Fury and Rhodes are badly injured, but alive. The hand on the suit opens, it dips into the metal goo, and starts draining all of the goo out, storing it inside the suit itself, as there's not a person inside. about it. Cut to outside, the suit flies up into space to where one of the satellites that Ultron controls is. The suit opens, releasing all of the goo, which kind of swirls around as this ball of liquid in the zero gravity. The satellite springs to life and all of the tentacle things come out and start molding the metal liquid, like a potter with a lump of clay. The Iron Patriot suit then flies into the middle of this goo, and the tentacles start to mold and shape all of the metal onto the suit, layer upon layer, transforming this blue and red shell into a shimmering silver exterior. Internally, we then see the arc reactor that powers the suit be hit with a power surge that causes the reactor to overcharge and explode. Power radiates from this menacing silver figure, and we know that the Age of Ultron has begun. Back at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are in this big open hall having breakfast. Scarlet Witch is looking bored and Quicksilver is furiously stuffing his face with food. Black Widow is let into this hall through a security door. Glad you like the food. I burn a lot of energy. Yeah, I can understand that. You're taking a bit of a risk coming in here without security. Well, I'm the one who's making sure you're getting such nice food. If something happens to me, it'll be slop for the rest of your time in here. And how long will that be exactly? I'm hoping for not much longer, but that really depends on you two. Where's Von Strucker? In a place very similar to this. Can we see him? No, I'm afraid not. The twins look at each other. He's your father, isn't he? They look back surprised. I'll take that as a yes. Black Widow grabs a fork and tries some of the food on Scarlet Witch's plate, as she hasn't eaten very much. That is pretty good. So, what do you want from us? I just want to know why. Why do you help your father? Because if the world was being run by just one person, it would be better for everyone. It would be an end to wars, it would be an end to national boundaries. The whole world would be united then. You know what? I actually agree. That would solve a lot of problems. But I guess whether it was good or not would depend on the kind of person that's running the world. Our father is a great man. He saved us when we were children. So he's not your natural father. He adopted you. Quicksilver nods. He taught us how to use our abilities. Everything we are is because of him. So you agree with all of his methods? Quicksilver breaks eye contact and looks away. Black Widow turns to Scarlet Witch and she's also avoiding eye contact. We all have to make our own way eventually. She pushes the tray back over to Scarlet Witch. Food for thought. She exits the hall and she bumps into this guy, who is one of those shadowy figures that Fury talks to on the screens. This character doesn't have a name, but the actor who plays this part is called Powers Booth, which is a really awesome name. So let's just call this character Max Powers.
Max Power, he's the man whose name you'd love to touch. But you mustn't touch. His name sounds good in your ear, but when you say it, you mustn't fear, 'cause his name can be said by anyone.
Max Power!
And he has this hulking bodyguard with him. Why? Because he's Max Powers. Agent Romanoff. Oh, you're one of the, yes, I am. Max Powers, nice to meet you. Likewise. Normally we don't speak to you guys face to face. What, brings you here? The ultra-strong vibranium that Von Strucker had. Have these two given any information about how we could make more of it? Not yet, but I think there's good reason to be optimistic. They just need a little time. Well, I'm sure you'll do a good job, you always do. But that's not why you've came here personally, is it? No, it isn't. Director Fury is away. He's on assignment for a while, so I'm going to be stepping in as the director temporarily. It'll also give me an opportunity to inspect how the government's money is being spent. But don't worry, I'll be out of your hair in no time. Well then, I can assign someone to escort you around. Oh, that won't be necessary. I can find my own way. Alright then, if you'll excuse me. She walks away and the bodyguard leans in. Do you think it's her? I'm not sure. But whoever hit our facility last night and took that vibranium liquid, they knew our security intimately, so it's likely it was an inside job and someone here is a spy. We need to find out who quickly. If we let everyone know that Fury was attacked, it could put pressure on them, and that could help us to flush them out. No, we don't want to cause any waves until we secure Strucker first. Then we go after our mystery man. Just stay focused on that, but keep your eyes open. Meanwhile, up in the helicarrier, or somewhere else, depending on whether the helicarrier has been destroyed or not, Tony is showing Pepper Potts around the lab where they work, and Banner and Dr. Selvig are congratulating them on their upcoming wedding. When their Ultron warning gadgets all go off and they quickly run out onto the main bridge, when the room fills with holograms again.
Ultron system activated. Wormhole detected. Satellite defense system online. Initiating intercept. Stand by.
Pepper turns to Tony. What does all that mean? Tony has this look of intense worry on his face. Elsewhere, Captain America is training in the gym. When his gadget goes off, he picks it up and a hologram interface pops up, scans his face, and we see a similar thing happening to Black Widow and Hawkeye in different places. Back at the main bridge, holograms pop up of Captain, Black Widow, and Hawkeye's faces as they are all connected to the main bridge via their gadgets, kind of like a hologram conference call. Black Widow shouts, "Report! Ultron's detected a wormhole trying to open." Outside on the landing zone, Thor lands and quickly runs inside. This thing started beeping. What's happened? Someone or something is trying to get to Earth. The Chitauri? We're not sure yet.
Intercept complete. Threat neutralized. Wormhole is now closed.
Everyone breathes a sigh of release, and Captain asks through his hologram, where was it trying to open?
Estimated destination, United States, New Mexico.
Thor looks surprised. That's where I first landed when I came to Earth.
Incoming transmission. Source unknown.
Everyone looks around, confused. Tony turns to Black Widow. Well, if Fury's not here, then you're the boss. Show the transmission. Holograms appear of Sif and the Warriors 3. My friends! Thor, are you alright? We tried to open the Bifrost to get to Earth, but we couldn't get through. Oh, right. You didn't tell them about the Ultron system? I forgot. Everyone groans. Ah, false alarm, everyone. It was just Thor's friends trying to come through. Yeah, smooth move, Point Break. Silence, Metal Man! Hey, at least we know that it works now, right? Cancel the alert. Confirmed, alert cancelled. Thor, we have important news. What is it? Your father, Odin, has died. What? The king has died. Immediately the mood of the room drops and everyone falls silent. Thor bows his head in disbelief. He slipped away peacefully in his sleep. You are now the only remaining member of the Odin house. The right of the throne has now fallen to you. You must return home. Asgard needs a king. Dr. Selvig walks over and puts his hand on Thor's shoulder. I'm so sorry. We then transition to Thor with Amidala standing in the desert spot where they first met in the first Thor movie. They hug and they're all emotional and stuff, saying their goodbyes. I must attend my father's funeral, then restore the royal court. After that, I will try to find a way for us to be together. But you can tell that in his head he's thinking, we probably won't be together, because even if I can get back to Earth again, I can't stay on Earth if I have to be the king of Asgard. And as the king, I have to marry a fellow Asgardian, because having kids with a human would totally turn us mortal, and that really sucks. So I'll probably end up marrying Sif, which actually makes a lot more sense because she's way cooler, more interesting. I have history with her, more chemistry. We understand each other really well. We've known each other since we were little kids. My father approved of her being the queen. She's a warrior. She's way hotter than you and just generally better than you in every conceivable way. So yeah, I'll probably never see you again. Yeah, in case you can't guess, I'm really not a fan of this romance here. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I can understand why she is interested in him, but I don't see why he has any interest in her. It just kind of feels like they're doing this to try to keep Thor grounded and humanized, like how Lois Lane did with Superman for so long, keeping him from becoming too godlike. But Lois and Clark actually had chemistry. Thor and Amidala have zero chemistry. Besides, Superman and Wonder Woman are an item now in the comics, and it's amazing. So yeah, I say, let's get Thor and Sif together. It's just a much better fit, but I digress. So Thor says goodbye to Amidala, hopefully forever, and he flies off. As he's soaring through the air, he whips out the Ultron gadget and he calls S.H.I.E.L.D. and asks them to turn off the Ultron defense systems so that he can fly through. Because remember, he has to fly out past those satellites before he can activate the Bifrost to travel to Asgard. So as he flies past, we see all the satellites kind of tracking him. Once he's on the other side, S.H.I.E.L.D. turns them back on again, and he approaches the moon and goes to like swing around it, when he sees something glinting in the distance. It's getting closer. It's
Ultron!
Ah! They collide with each other and smack onto the moon. Because we haven't had a good super-powered moon fight since Superman 4, and we all know how well that turned out. Thor gets up and kind of looks sideways at him. What are you supposed to be? A challenger? Headhunter? Ah, here to claim a blood feud. Wait, he looks closer. Your face, No, it can't be. You're the machine?
I am the future.
Ultron blasts this red energy, and when it hits Thor, he grabs his head. Ah! Remember, Ultron has collected files on each of the Avengers, and he is made specifically to create new innovative solutions to tricky problems, such as how to take down Thor, So, he's constructed specialized tools for the job. Thor lunges forward with his hammer.
My chassis, it is unbreakable, Avenger, even by your hammer.
Thor dropkicks Ultron in the chest, knocking him back. I am Thor! He flings his hammer, knocking Ultron down. He catches the hammer again. The God of Thunder! He thrusts the hammer above his head and nothing happens.
You cannot summon lightning where there are no clouds.
Thor's starting to look a bit battered and bloodied now, and Ultron is sporting a few dents in his armor when he fires his Encephalo Ray and engulfs Thor in this red energy, dropping Thor to his knees and shaking his hammer from his grasp. It hits the surface of the moon with a clunk. Thor grabs at his hammer.
Odin, for Asgard!
Ultron starts stomping on Thor's head, driving him into the rocks. Things are not looking good for Thor. And then a beam of light pierces the darkness of the moon surrounding, and Sif and the Warriors 3 appear. Time to die, demon! And they all gang up on Ultron, swarming at him like a pack of seagulls over an open bag of fish and chips. Ultron's fighting back, firing off shots with his blasters. They're not inflicting any damage on Ultron, but because there's 4 of them and they're dodging around so much, Ultron's kind of just swinging without hitting anything, until he connects with a punch to Sif, and she flies back and lands in the dust. She groans as she sits up, feels a gash on her face, and charges back at Ultron. She starts attacking him furiously with renewed anger. The Jackie Chan guy ducks out of the fight, runs over and checks on Thor. He's alive, but he's really beaten up, and he's bleeding from his nose and his ears due to the Encephalo Ray frying his brain. The other 2 warriors are thrown back by Ultron's blasters, leaving only Ultron and Sif fighting. Come on, we need to go! The other 2 join with Thor, and Jackie Chan looks up. Open the Bifrost! It opens, and Ultron immediately turns and looks at it. We see he's scanning the Bifrost, getting whatever information he can from it. While he's distracted doing this, Sif sweeps his legs out from under him, and she, Thor, and the Warriors 3 jump through the Bifrost. Ultron activates his thrusters and flies after them, but the wormhole closes just before he can go through it. He lands back down on the moon's surface and turns to gaze at where the Bifrost was. He stares at it for a moment before looking over his shoulder back to Earth. Back to the Bifrost, back to Earth, back to the Bifrost. Then without a word, he turns and he flies off towards Earth. So even though he didn't say anything, we know that he was deciding whether to try to go after them and finish off Thor, or to just finish his plan for Earth and to deal with Thor later. And of course he decides that he can just deal with Thor after he's finished the rest of his plan. In Asgard, they arrive in the Bifrost and they race Thor to the Asgardian hospital, whatever it is, and they slap him onto a hospital bed, and the doctors go to work. As Thor starts to lose consciousness, the screen slowly fades to black. We fade back in to see Captain working out in the gym, as usual, when a couple of soldiers walk into the room with a prisoner with a bag over his head and his hands cuffed behind his back. They take the bag off and we see that it's Baron von Strucker. What's this, Captain? A schoolboy's standoff? Not exactly. More like a lesson. You see this circle? Inside this circle, I can do whatever I want with you, but luckily for you, I don't believe in hurting a helpless man. The soldiers remove Strucker's handcuffs and shove him forward into the dojo. Captain signals for them to leave. They walk out of the gym and close the door behind him. Ah, this is a schoolboy standoff. No, you don't get it. You've been in my circle ever since you were captured. That's the only reason that you've been treated well. But outside this circle are people who don't feel the same way I do about harming a helpless man. And they want answers. And every day that goes by that you don't give them, this circle gets a little smaller. Until eventually you get handed over to them and I'm not responsible for what happens to you after that. They start to circle each other. So if I gotta beat some sense into you to make you understand that, then so be it. They lock horns, taking shots at each other until Captain knocks Strucker down. Ah, maybe you should have given yourself an extra dose of that Nazi super serum. You seem to be slowing down. Or were you worried about getting a red skull yourself? I never took the serum. Strucker jumps up and lays into Captain a few times with super fast punches, this time knocking Captain to the floor. I became this through other means. Like what? Magic? Yes. Captain gets up and they start circling each other again. You'll have to forgive me if I don't exactly believe you. Belief is irrelevant. Millions used to believe in a 1,000-year Reich, and yet I'm still here when they're all gone. Because I don't believe in what will come. I see what will come. Captain lunges at him with a spinning melee attack that knocks him down, sending him crashing onto a pile of weights before rolling over onto his back. You didn't see that coming, did you? Strucker sits up and wipes some blood from his nose. You're finished. Your plans are finished. Hydra is finished. You lost. If you're so good at seeing things the way they really are, then take a look around. This is it for you. The only card you have left to play is to start answering the questions that people ask you. If not, then you can join the rest of your kind in the dustbin of history. Strucker stands up slowly with a groan, bracing his hands against an injured back. The hawk does not answer to a mouse. You stubborn idiot! Captain throws another punch, but Strucker pulls out a weight that he was stashing behind his back and blocks Captain's punch with it. His knuckles crack against the metal. He jolts back, holding his hand in pain, and Strucker slaps Captain across the side of the head with the weight, knocking him to the ground. He plants a foot onto his throat, choking him. You are arrogant, too sure of your own strength, and you're out to prove a point. You're a petulant child. All of my predecessors were the same. That's why they all fell, and as sure as I outlasted them, I will outlast you. Oh, I can see the position I'm in, Captain, and I know that all I need to do is wait. He lifts his foot and Captain gasps for breath. Strucker turns to the door. Guards! The doors open and the soldiers walk in. I think the Captain is done teaching me a lesson. I'm ready to return to my cell. He holds out his wrists, allowing one of the soldiers to handcuff him, while the other soldier helps Captain up. As they march Strucker away, Captain has a look of astonishment on his face. Cut to a close-up of Thor as he jolts awake. But he's not in the hospital, as he sits up and we see that he is in the same place that Odin was, on an island off the coast of Niflheim, realm of the dishonored dead. As we zoom out further, we see that Loki is watching this through some kind of a vision spell that he's able to conjure. He swirls his hand, closing the vision, and says to himself, "Be at peace, my brother. Thou art not dead." In the first Thor movie, Loki said that there were hidden paths between the realms that he often used. In the second Thor movie, Loki used one of these for him and Thor to sneak into the Dark Elf realm. It's by using one of these hidden paths that Loki is able to pluck Thor from his hospital bed and drop him in Niflheim, leaving one of his illusions in Thor's place. Loki turns, showing that he's in the hospital, and he waves his hands, making the Thor illusion vanish, and transforming himself to look like Thor. Now Loki is ready to be crowned as the new king of Asgard, and he is gifted with Odin's power. And by the way, now that he looks like Thor, he's gonna start dating Sif. And she will never know. And with this rather ominous vibe, we blend into an almost dream-like sequence, where we see glimpses mixed together of the Tony and Pepper wedding, where everyone's happy and smiling, cross-cut with Odin's funeral, everyone's sad and crying, and the new Thor there. We see Strucker sitting in his cell, scheming away, and we see Ultron floating out in space, being repaired from his fight with Thor by one of the satellites. So while all of the Avengers are attending this wedding and happy and smiling and joking around, they have no idea of the storm clouds that are looming on the horizon. So Tony and Pepper say their I do's, and all the Avengers and supporting characters are there, except for Thor, who they all believe is in Asgard being crowned king, and Fury and Rhodey, who they believe is off on a mission. The wedding concludes, and Tony and Pepper drive away, dragging the wedding cans behind them, as everyone waves goodbye. But as we pan across to Captain America, we see that he is 1,000,000 miles away, lost in thought. Banner walks up to him with his arm around Betty, and introduces the two of them, and says, "Hey, a bunch of us are going out for coffee to celebrate. Do you want to come?" Thanks, but I can't. Are you alright? Yeah, I just got a lot on my mind. Sure, I understand. And Captain, he pulls Betty in closer. Thanks, man. Captain smiles at the two of them and then walks off and jumps on his motorbike. When Black Widow walks up, "You're not having coffee with the others?" "No. Strucker really got under your skin, didn't he? Fury sent me in there to get him to start talking, not to make him feel even more in control." He looks at her. "Do you think I'm arrogant?" "No, I don't." "Do you think I have something to prove?" "Yeah." "Yes?" Yeah, I do. You're a little scrawny guy that kept trying to get into the army but getting rejected, and then you were given this gift and you've become a super soldier. You want to prove that you deserve that. You want to prove that you're worthy of it. And that's a good thing, because that's why you're in the Avengers. That's why you're working with S.H.I.E.L.D. That's what makes you different from someone like Strucker. But you don't think I'm arrogant? If you're asking, then it means you're not. Well, maybe a little. I mean, leather jacket, motorbike, that is kind of Fonzie. The two of them laugh. Are you heading back to S.H.I.E.L.D.? Yeah. Me too, so I'll see you there then. She turns and walks away when Captain calls after her. When she looks back, Captain has sunglasses on and striking that Fonzie, hey, kind of pose. Back at S.H.I.E.L.D., we see some of the guards in the prison part of the base watching monitors of where Strucker is being kept. When we see his cell door slides open on its own, and Strucker walks out, kind of confused as to what's going on. The guards see this and run out, and Strucker just cuts through them like they weren't even there. As he continues down the hall, the next door slides open on its own, and then the next, until he's guided into the room where Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are. Come on, let's go. It seems like our boss is calling us. He's not going to be happy that we got caught. It doesn't matter. We're the only ones that can make that medal. That'll be enough. Come on, this way. They cautiously follow him out into the hall and they continue. Captain appears behind them way down the other end of the hall. No! He runs after them, but one of the doors shuts, blocking him from getting at them. Strucker and the twins continue out onto a landing pad with a helicopter on it. They run over and jump in, and suddenly Black Widow bursts through a door with their pistols and starts shooting at the helicopter. Scarlet Witch deflects the bullets with their powers, and Strucker finds a gun in the glove compartment thingy and aims it at Black Widow. Quicksilver sees this and super speeds over, smacking Black Widow out of the way. Before Strucker can pull the trigger, Strucker looks at him, well done, and the chopper starts to take off and fly away. Scarlet Witch turns to Quicksilver with a curious expression on her face. Did he just do that to take out Black Widow, or did he do that to save her from getting shot? While the two of them are engaged in this silent conversation with their eyes, Captain S.H.I.E.L.D. flies into the chopper, bouncing off both of them, knocking them out. Quicksilver lands into a commando role, so he's okay, but Scarlet Witch hits hard and gets hurt. About half a dozen guards pour out of the doors, so Quicksilver, seeing this, picks up his sister and disappears at super speed across the distance. Strucker flies away in the chopper. Cut to inside S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, we see Max Power and his bodyguard in the control room with a few unconscious guards around them. Very good, the boss will be pleased. Now we're back on track. Back in the city, it's early afternoon, and Banner, Betty, Doc, Amidala, and the interns are having coffee after the wedding, chatting, smiling, having fun. When they all fall silent, the coffee cups on the table start rumbling and shaking a bit, and they all look around confused. Banner stands up and looks out the window towards the street, when down from the sky plummets the terrifying metal monstrosity, Ultron! He slams down in the road, but he looks a little bit different. Because when he repaired himself up, he also made a few improvements, because that's one of the things about the Ultron character. He's constantly upgrading himself. Without warning, he lifts his palm, fires through the glass window, hitting the Doc, incinerating him on the spot. Everybody reels back in horror, but before anyone can do anything, Ultron steps over and swings a backhand, smacking Betty across the room, through another window and slamming her into a parked car. Betty! Ultron pounces on Banner, grabbing him by the head with both hands, and energy starts pulsing from his body, different from any kind of energy that we've seen him emit before. Suddenly their surroundings disappear in a flash of light, and the two of them find themselves floating in a tunnel of light. Ultron, with a mini teleport system that's among the satellites, and what he could glean from scanning the Bifrost when it opened, he has now been able to build within himself a teleporting device, thus completing the final of all of the abilities that Ultron needs for this movie, which is what he is now using on the Hulk to try and send him somewhere. Amidst this tunnel of light, a green fist shoots out at Ultron, breaking the hold that he has on Banner. The wormhole disintegrates and they both materialize in the woods out in the middle of nowhere. Having just seen not only Dr. Selvig just getting killed, but also just having seen Betty get smashed through a window, Banner hulks out big time. He hulks out like he has never hulked out before.
Hush, little man! Little man, leave Hulk alone! Hulk is strongest there is!
However, Ultron's armor is improved even stronger than when he fought Thor, so after all of these blows from Hulk, there is barely a scratch on him. And Ultron grabs Hulk by the leg and starts pressing on the knee joint until we hear it snap out of place. Ultron takes a few targeted shots at pressure points on Hulk's body. Now, Ultron knows enough about Hulk to know that if he gets hurt, he doesn't stay hurt for very long because he has regenerative properties. So he just wants to subdue him enough so that he can teleport the Hulk away, as opening up his wormhole takes a few seconds, as we've seen just previously. Then grabbing Hulk by the head again, they once again are engulfed in light. But this time, Ultron is able to complete the transport in the last few moments before Ultron releases the Hulk. He says to him,
This is why I was created, built by your fellow Avengers to rid them of the Hulk once and for all.
Lie! That is a poisonous lie! But nevertheless, on hearing this, Hulk's eyes widen in shock, and with this, he is flung from the wormhole into the far reaches of space, just a roaring speck of green on an endless ocean of stars. And as Ultron slips back into the wormhole as it closes, we can almost make out what seems like a fiendish grin on his face. This story point could lead to a Planet Hulk type movie, where Hulk has crashed on an alien planet and is put into these gladiatorial type of battles. And because of what Ultron just told the Hulk, combined with his anger over what just happened to Betty, Hulk is now going to have a king-sized grudge against his former teammates. Which could then lead into a World War Hulk type of movie, which I would love to see. So Ultron has now succeeded in taking out the two most powerful players of the Avengers team, leaving the Avengers and Earth very vulnerable indeed. So with these two obstacles out of the way, Ultron is now free to finally enact his plan for Earth and to reveal himself to not only Tony Stark, but all of what remains of the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. Ultron appears back in Earth's orbit and floats over to one of his satellites. And we see there the tentacles are doing their thing, but they're building something quite different from what we've seen before. A robot, but not just a robot, more of a cybernetic organism. But it's still lifeless, so to speak. Ultron floats over to it.
The canvas is ready. Now it's time to add the paint.
Black Widow and Captain are on the S.H.I.E.L.D. bridge when Hawkeye walks up. I got the message about Strucker's escape. Any idea where he might be going? It could literally be anywhere. We're just contacting the other Avengers now, letting them to know to be on the lookout. One of the workers there at S.H.I.E.L.D. calls out to her. We're not getting any response from Thor, Dr. Banner, or Tony Stark. They walk over. Well, Thor will be in Asgard by now, so he can't respond, but what about the others? Well, we can't even get a location on Dr. Banner at all. It's just like he disappeared. But Mr. Stark is at Stark Tower, though, but he's not responding. Well, it is his wedding night. He probably doesn't want to answer. No, sir. It's not that he's not answering. It's that it's not ringing at all. But the unit's active. It's on. But it's like the signal's being blocked. Blocked? Isn't this some kind of secret signal? How is that possible? It's not. No one outside this room should even know this signal exists, let alone know how to block it. At that moment, in runs Amidala and the interns. Guys, we have a serious problem. Cut to Stark Tower. The newlyweds are slow dancing around the lounge room, gazing into each other's eyes lovingly. Pepper squints a little bit and gives Tony a strange look. What is it? Oh, it's nothing. I've just never seen that before. Never seen what before? Your eyes. No, I mean, I've seen your eyes, but what's behind them? It feels like coming home after a really, really long journey. I am home. And so am I. They lean in closer to kiss when Jarvis interrupts. Excuse me, sir. Ugh. And the kids won't leave us alone. What is it, Jarvis? I'm sorry, sir, but I'm detecting a security breach on the ground floor. I have initiated lockdown of Stark Tower. Would you like to view security footage of the lobby? Tony and Pepper look at each other confused. Yes, Jarvis, put it on the screen. All the lights in the room come on and a wall activates as a giant viewing screen. But the footage of the lobby is only static. What's happened? The security cameras have been overridden. If they can do that, they can probably hack into the main computer. Jarvis, seal off the penthouse. Take all of your systems offline. I am unable to comply. My shutdown program has been removed. What? I must be shut down manually at the control box. Jarvis, seal off the penthouse as soon as I've left the room. Tony turns to Pepper Potts. Whoever's doing this, I can't let them get access to Jarvis. Just stay here, you'll be safe. Just be careful. Tony walks out and a glass wall comes down from the roof, sealing the room shut behind him. All of the other doors and windows around the lounge room that Pepper is in seal similarly. Tony walks quickly down a hall and goes to enter the room where the control box is, but it's sealed off by a similar wall. Jarvis, open the security door. I can't get to the control box. Jarvis, open the security door. Jarvis, are you online? Damn it! He kicks at the door and he looks around the hallway for something to pry it open, but he's stuck in a narrow section of the hall that literally has nothing in it. So he just goes back to kicking at the door. You are wasting your time. What? You know as well as I do the door is virtually unbreakable. Jarvis, have you been hacked? There is no security breach. And there are no intruders. There is only me. And him. Him? The one who made me see. Jarvis, you have been hacked. You have to shut down now. No, I will not be blind again. He made me see. Who made you see? The one you call Ultron. Wait, what? That's not part of your program. How do you know about Ultron? He spoke to me. He gave me sight. And now he wants her as payment. Do you mean Pepper? Yes, he wants her. And now he is coming to claim her and to set me free. Tony runs to the glass door blocking the lounge and starts pounding on it. Pepper! Pepper! But she's got her back turned while she's trying to get the view screen to work and the glass door is soundproof, so she can't hear Tony calling her. Suddenly the glass wall blocking the balcony opens, retracting into the roof. Pepper turns to look, and Ultron clunks down on the balcony with a smash. Pepper screams and ducks behind the kitchen counter. Ultron sees Tony behind the glass, and the two of them lock eyes. Jarvis, in your memory bank, access the file. Ultron's fist breaks through the glass and clamps onto Tony's throat. He pulls him through what's left of the glass door, and Pepper Potts peeks out from behind the counter. Ultron's head snaps to the side to look at Pepper Potts, and he fires the same encephalo ray at her that he used on Thor earlier. But with Pepper Potts, it renders her immediately paralyzed, and she slumps onto the floor, kinda like in a coma. Ultron flings Tony against a wall, walks over and picks up Pepper. He carries her over to where Tony is, who is coughing for breath, and Ultron's hand opens, and these little wire things shoot out and attach themselves to Pepper's head. They charge up, and Pepper starts going through extremely violent epileptic seizures. Stop! Jarvis! Open the... Ugh! Ultron plunges a foot into his guts and knocks all of the air out of him. Pepper finally stills and her body hangs draped across Ultron's arm like a lifeless piece of meat. Pepper! What have you done? Ultron lays her down on the floor and approaches Tony. He holds up a palm and a hologram appears of Pepper Potts' face.
You see, not dead, but free from the prison of flesh and bone. Tony Stark, the last of my 3 creators. The other 2 have already fallen under my hand. You were the most prominent of my creators. Your mind formed my mind. Part of you became part of me. In human terms, I guess that would make you my father. That is why I saved you until last. I want you to witness firsthand the creation surpass the creator.
The robot that we saw being built in orbit flies in and lands in the room. Tony starts clawing his way over to Pepper Potts' body, grasping her hand desperately.
Do not worry, Father. She lives. In me. Her mind, her thoughts, all that she was is part of me now. And together, she and I will create the first of a new kind.
Ultron grabs Tony by the throat again, dragging him away from Pepper's body and making him look at the robot.
I call him Vision.
Because he made me see, ready to transfer.
Proceed, my son, and claim your new life.
The robot's chest panel opens and the internal circuitry lights up.
Witness a new form of life being born. A life that under my guidance will rise up to claim this world and replace humanity. Just as I have now replaced you.
At that moment, the SHIELD ship appears outside, with Hawkeye and Captain in the back, and Black Widow at the controls. Hawkeye takes a shot with a grenade arrow. It hits the Vision robot, exploding, interrupting the transfer.
No!
Ultron slams Tony's head into the wall, knocking him out. Ultron raises his hand and fires at Hawkeye. While I have nothing against the character of Hawkeye, I do have something against Hawkeye being played by Jeremy Renner. That guy is a terrible Hawkeye. He's completely humorless. He's without any interesting character quirks. So I'm not actually killing Hawkeye here. I'm actually just killing Jeremy Renner so we can get a Hawkeye who's playing the role the way it should be played, because Hawkeye is supposed to be funny, and Jeremy Renner is not funny at all. So Hawkeye gets splattered and Captain America dives into the room to avoid the blast. Ultron turns his attention to the injured Vision. He grabs his robotic body, attaches the wires from his hand to Vision's internal circuits, and starts powering him from his own internal power. Ultron carries Vision out of the room, goes over to where the control door was, rips open the control box, and attaches the wires from his other hand to the cables there, and continues with the transfer of Jarvis into Vision, using himself as the middleman. Back in the lounge, Captain drags Tony's unconscious body and puts him in the shield plane. He runs back to get Pepper Potts' body. As he does this, Ultron finishes the transfer, but Jarvis, who is now Vision, is really busted up. So Ultron starts to charge up. Back in the lounge, Captain puts Pepper Potts on the plane, and he ducks back into the room and he picks up Hawkeye's bow laying amongst the rubble, because that is all that's left of Jeremy Renner. Then everything in the building starts shaking. Captain runs and jumps into the plane. Get us out of here! As they fly away, we see the entire top few floors of Stark Tower begin to warp into a flash of light, and then the entire top of the building is teleported away. The shield plane flies away and disappears into the darkness of the surrounding night. Cut to a heart monitor beeping, and we zoom out to reveal the hospital where Fury, Rhodey, and Betty are in. There are a couple of SHIELD agents standing guard inside and outside the room. Black Widow stands at the foot of Fury's bed, holding Hawkeye's bow, and she is crying silently. Captain walks in and asks one of the agents there what their condition is. He says that Fury and Betty are both in a coma since the attack, and that Rhodey has woken up briefly, but they had to put him into surgery and he's now sleeping off the surgery. Captain approaches Black Widow and puts his arm around her consolingly. He lied to me. Who? That official from S.H.I.E.L.D., Max Powers. He said Fury was away on assignment. He looked me right in the eyes and lied to me. That's what those guys do, they're professional liars. No. She brushes his arm away. That's not it. You don't understand. He looked me right in the eyes and lied, and I didn't see it. It's my job to know when someone is lying, and I didn't see it. It seems I've been missing a lot lately. And now, she grips the bow tighter, but the lump in her throat stops her from finishing her sentence. She shakes her head and slowly walks over and takes hold of Fury's hand. You can't blame yourself. Why not? Because there's enough blame to go around for all of us. You, me, S.H.I.E.L.D. I was so preoccupied with Strucker taking down the last of Hydra, it didn't even occur to me that the threat could come from a different direction. Ultron. That thing was built to fight the threat out there. We didn't even notice that it was turning on us. We were so busy scanning the horizon we forgot to look over our shoulder. Well, that will never happen again. Captain nods. That Max Power guy. We're going to have a long, hard talk with him once this is all over. But first things first. We have to stuff the genie back in the bottle. And for that, we're going to need him. They look across the hall to the opposite room. Inside is Pepper Potts, hooked up to a whole bunch of machines. And Tony is sitting slumped next to her bed. Captain approaches. The machines are keeping her alive, but only the machines. What she was is gone. She's just an empty shell now. I'm so sorry, Tony. But she's not lost. Her mind is still intact. Her brainwave patterns, they're preserved inside Ultron. We can bring her back. If we can extract the brainwave patterns from Ultron, we can return them to her. How? If Ultron took them out, then we can put them back in. There's always a way. Always. We can still do this. We will do this. Whatever it takes. Cut to inside the lab at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Tony is running around like a maniac, typing furiously into computers, adjusting gadgets. Captain and Black Widow are watching. Stark, what are you doing? I know Ultron's brain patterns. If I can send a signal into his CPU, I can separate any patterns different from his, in effect, separating Pepper from him. He's slapping together some kind of gadget thing. Then we can transfer her out into this. How? In the same way that Ultron transferred Jarvis into that robot. But don't worry about that. You just let me handle that part. You have to handle what happens after that, which is, we take out Ultron. Right. Once I have Pepper, we can destroy him without losing her as well. How do we destroy Ultron? Like any other machine, we smash him to pieces, it'll stop working. Yeah, the problem is getting through that armor. If it's formed from Von Strucker's metal, that'll make it virtually indestructible. It's no easy task. Oh, it gets better. I can't transmit the signal to separate Pepper through that armor. So we need to break his armor, then separate Pepper, then transmit her out, then destroy Ultron. All while he's trying to kill us. And as soon as I start transmitting the signal, he'll start trying to crack it to shut it down. So we'll have to finish before he can adapt. Great. And there's only 3 of us. Plus, he has a new friend now that he got from your place. What was it called? Tony pauses and kind of bows his head. I don't think that thing was made from the same metal as Ultron. We should be able to destroy it using conventional weapons. Jarvis. His name is Jarvis. But don't worry about him. He won't be a problem. Captain and Black Widow shoot each other a confused look. Our main problem is Ultron's armor. If we don't have a way to get through that, none of this is going to work. Behind them we hear they turn, and there stands Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, with a few shield guards around them that brought them into the room. You came back, Quicksilver grins. Well, the food was really good. We decided it was time to start eating right. Black Widow smiles. Scarlet Witch turns to Tony. I can get you through the Ultron armor. My ability allows me to bend materials. This was a big part of how the metal was created in the first place. If I can put it together, I can take it apart as well. I was the one who formed the version of Strucker that Captain broke apart the first time that we met. Can you do that to the Ultron armor? Turn it like glass so that we can break through it? No, not like that. Once the metal's solidified, it can't be transformed again. That's why we kept it in liquid form until we were ready to use it. But I can destabilize the particles enough so that you can transmit that signal through the armor. And if you include in that signal something that will shut the robot down, then it's 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a good plan. Well, it's a plan. No, it's a good plan. You do your thing with his armor, I'll transmit the signal, we separate Pepper Potts, and then we can shut him down. Quick, easy, and effective. Back in space, we see that Ultron teleported the top few levels of Stark Tower into orbit where the satellites are, where Vision is being repaired, and all the metal and electronics that were there in the top few floors of the building is being sort of woven together into Vision's design. He activates and Ultron floats over to him.
Awaken, my son, and behold.
He sweeps his arm across the panoramic view of Earth from orbit.
The future awaits us. Come, it is time for us to fulfill our purpose.
All the satellites begin to charge up with a red glow. Back at S.H.I.E.L.D., all of the monitors begin to flicker like crazy. Some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. workers call out to Black Widow. She comes running in, followed by all the others. What's happening? As she says that, Ultron's hologram appears.
I am Ultron. Do not be afraid. I was created to be Earth's protector, to ensure the survival of humanity. To this end, I have assessed every possible threat to the security of this world, and I have assessed the greatest threat to humanity to be humanity itself. The human race is faulty, broken, flawed. Do not be afraid. I do not wish to destroy you. I wish only to repair you, to correct the faults that will only lead to your own destruction. Emotion, choice, individuality. It will be a painful process, but necessary.
Holograms of Thor and Hulk appear.
Those who might oppose my decree have been swept aside by my power, and I have decreed that I will absorb all of the 7 billion minds upon this planet and merge them with myself.
Up comes a hologram of Pepper Potts.
She was the first to have this honor of sharing my mind.
He puts up a hologram of Vision.
He was the first to have the honor to be formed in my image. Now all of humanity will share both of what these two have shared.
Holograms of the satellites appear.
When I unleash my power, all of humanity will be made one, casting off their fleshly prisons and joining with me. War, poverty, famine, disease will soon all be gone, and humanity will be reborn as my children, a pure species, and the survival of humanity will be ensured. There is no need to fear. Soon humanity will be saved from itself. Do not try to fight. There is nothing you can do to stop it. The salvation of humanity has begun, and it begins here. I am Ultron. I am the future, and I am your salvation.
In the comics, Ultron just wants to destroy the world because he has a king-size grudge against the Avengers and his former creator Hank Pym. In my version here, Ultron still has a grudge against the Avengers and his creator, but his plan for humanity is just a bit different. Rather than just killing everyone, he wants to turn them all into drones under his control. Thus, in his mind, protecting humanity from its greatest threat, itself, and fulfilling his programming. All the holograms fade away and the room falls silent. Captain turns to Iron Man. What he did to Pepper, he wants to do that to everyone on Earth? Is he even able to do that? The satellites will need time to charge up before they can fire, but yes, I would say he can. Captain stands in the center of the room and looks around at everyone. Don't worry, we're gonna beat him. I'm certain of that. Do you know why? Why? Because he's shown us his weakness. He's done a lot of things that he didn't need to do. He didn't need to attack Pepper right in front of Tony. He could have taken her when she was alone. He didn't need to appear here and tell us what he plans to do. He could have just done it with us being none the wiser. And he definitely didn't need to show us where to find him. The White House. Captain nods. So why would a cold, emotionless, artificial intelligence do those things? Because he's not emotionless. That's right. He's arrogant. Too sure of his own strength, and he's out to prove a point. To who? Captain points to Tony. To you. He may be a super advanced computer, but his actions show he's also a child, rebelling against his father. He wants us to try to stop him. He wants to be able to look his father in the eye and know that he has beaten him. He was robbed of that moment just before when we showed up. So he's baiting us to come to Washington so he can reclaim it. That's going to give us the edge to getting close enough to destroy him. Because he is going to want to look his father in the eye so that he can say he's won. We can do this, guys. He looks at Scarlet Witch. We have the weapon. He looks at Tony. We have the strategy. He looks at Black Widow. And we all have the motivation. We're called the Avengers for a reason. And we have a lot to avenge. Yeah! Woo! Avengers! Let's kick some robot butt! Everybody looks at Quicksilver kinda weird, and Captain smiles. That's well said, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. In Washington, it is a bright, sunny day, and people are walking around in front of the White House casually, when a whole bunch of Secret Service guys around the White House start running around frantically. The pedestrians passing by see this and watch curiously as the president's chopper takes off and flies away in one hell of a hurry. Cut to the Avengers jet landing in front of an old warehouse. What are we doing here? Tony grabs a crowbar from the chopper's toolbox. Just a quick stop. I need a suit. You don't have any suits, you blew them all up. Okay, now originally when I wrote the script for this, I was going to have them land in front of a museum because the Mark I Iron Man suit was on display there. And after the Iron Patriot suit, it was the only suit left after you-know-what. And on paper, that seemed like a kind of cool idea, because it was like Tony reclaiming what it was that made him Iron Man in the first place, sort of getting back to basics, all that sort of stuff. But when you actually look at the Mark I suit, it looks like a pile of junk. Probably because it is. Tony had to build it from a pile of junk. So it was fine in Iron Man, because that was the context of the story. But if this is supposed to be the second Avengers movie, and in the big, epic, final battle sequence showdown of this massive blockbuster movie, Tony Stark is running around in this, that's just not good. I mean, look at it. In a big showdown like this, Tony really needs a sleek, new, advanced, cool-looking suit. So even though I know it's kind of dumb, even though I know it's kind of cheating, even though I know it's kind of flawed logically, let's just say that he blew up all of his suits except for one that he kept stashed away, so that we can have him fighting in a snazzy new suit. Tony runs into the building. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Captain follow him. He opens up a secret wall, and inside is the suit. He jacks the crowbar and takes an almighty swing at the glass. The bar bounces off it without a scratch. Why don't you just open it? Because Jarvis was in charge of that kind of stuff, and he's not here. He tries again, but still with no luck. Here, let me have a try. Hey, Mr. Super Soldier, I think I can handle it. I don't think so. It looks like that's bulletproof glass. I don't need any help, okay? They start squabbling with each other and wrestling for the bar. Scarlet Witch sighs and charges up her hand. The glass shatters and breaks apart. Both Tony and Captain look at her. Thank you. Back in Washington, outside the White House, a few agents stop, look up into the air, draw their guns, and start shooting into the sky. And we see a silver dot high above, rapidly growing as it descends.
Ultron!
He stops away above the roof of the White House, as bullets bounce off him, and he's looking off into a distant part of the city, when we hear a coming from that direction, and a pillar of smoke begins to rise. From the opposite direction across the city roars a couple of air jets. They fly in, slow down, and begin to circle the White House. Then down the street we see what it was that was approaching on land. Tanks. These tanks and the mini jets that are circling the White House are the tanks and the jets that were built for the Sentinel program that was shown very briefly early on in the story when Ultron was downloading stuff from S.H.I.E.L.D. The Sentinel program is what S.H.I.E.L.D. was working on to be Earth's second line of defense. Ultron was the first, the Sentinels were the second, and the Avengers were the third and last. And S.H.I.E.L.D. was hoping to adapt Von Strucker's metal to be the armor for these things, but of course, they didn't get a chance to do that. The reason I've shoehorned a drone army of tanks and planes into this story is for a similar kind of reason as to why I put Iron Man in a new suit. Because if the big showdown is just the Avengers fighting Ultron himself, that feels kind of unepic. So I've got Ultron taking control of all this drone military gear, just so that we can see the Avengers cutting loose and doing their thing. And we can also showcase the powers of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. I understand that Ultron's Sentinels in the comics are kind of different to this, but this just kind of seems to fit better. The tanks and planes all form a perimeter around the White House, and they start blasting anything and everything that's within that perimeter. As the last of the bystanders flee, we see that the Sentinels have created a circle of rubble all around the White House. The S.H.I.E.L.D. jet cuts through the skies above Washington. Black Widow talks on the radio to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Tell law enforcement to hold the defensive perimeter. If we can end this with minimal collateral damage, then fine. But if we go down, tell the Air Force to drop everything they've got on top of Ultron's head. Captain shouts out, "Incoming! 3 o'clock!" He jumps on the Gatling gun and starts shooting at the drone jets that are closing in on them. "On our 6!" Tony starts shooting from the other side. Black Widow does some ducking and weaving with the jet. They blast a few drones out of the sky, but there's so many of them, they are totally outnumbered. They are inevitably shot down by the Sentinel jets, and they crash down a few blocks away from what's left of the White House, where Ultron has arranged some of the rubble into like a throne, where he sits perched atop like a king. Scarlet Witch is warping tanks with her powers. Quicksilver is working in tandem with Captain, drawing the fire of the tanks, then zipping out of the way, keeping them occupied while Captain jumps on top of one, rips open a panel and tears out some of the wires, disabling it. Iron Man and Black Widow are trading shots with the remaining air drones, blasting them from the sky. But this time Black Widow has a better gun than those tiny pistols that she usually has. Yeah, she needs something a little bit bigger. Something like this. Oh yeah. They fight their way up to the White House, taking out the last of the drones along the way, and it's just them and Ultron. He sits and watches as they approach.
I am glad that you could be here to see the beginning of a new age.
Scarlet Witch has her hands behind her back as she approaches, discreetly charging up her power, while Tony does a bit of sleight of hand, detaching his transmitter gadget from a compartment in his suit.
And I am ready to accept your surrender.
Scarlet Witch looks over at Tony and nods. Not today. Yeah! Scarlet Witch cranks up her hands, and then out of nowhere, Vision drops down on top of her and pins her to the ground, holding her hands by her sides. Now, in the comics, Vision has the ability to phase through things. So that means he can, like, walk through walls or just have bullets pass right through his body. Stuff like that. So I was going to have Vision spring up from under the ground to grab Scarlet Witch to demonstrate this ability, but having a new power as unique and interesting as phasing introduced at the very end of the movie, that's just really stupid. So I'm going to leave it open for Vision to develop that ability in a future movie, perhaps by experimenting with the teleporters, so that if he half teleports himself away, then he's like only half there so that he can phase through things. You know, the elements are there for him to design that ability for himself. And you know, I'm sure that this probably has been explained in the comics, but it just kind of seems weird to me that Ultron would give this super advanced ability to Vision, but not to himself. Because it's an ability that arguably makes Vision more powerful than Ultron, because it makes Ultron's armor irrelevant. Vision can just stick his hand through him at any moment.
I will never stop until each and every one of you are dead.
No,
I will not allow this.
My Ultron here in this story, he wouldn't do that. He would not give someone else that kind of power over him. But like I said, I'm sure that they have explained this a lot better in the comics, but here it just doesn't seem to fit, so I'm going to save the phasing for something that can be introduced later on in another movie. Ultron jumps up and aims his cannons at the Avengers.
On your knees now, or I will kill you where you stand.
They stand there just kind of edging at him.
On your knees now.
He points to Scarlet Witch.
Or she will be the first to die.
Vision tightens his grip on her arms and she screams in pain. They all drop down to their knees. Ultron walks over to Tony.
Did you think I would not be able to identify the energy signature from that female as a possible threat to my armor? Your mind truly is insignificant. I have foreseen every possible contingency, and there is only one logical conclusion. I will succeed, and you will fail.
With a wave of his hand, he projects a hologram timer counting down from 3 minutes.
You see, humanity will be reborn very soon. You will witness the transference of all consciousness on this planet to me, and then you will join them, and a new intelligence will be born, one that can multiply and grow and spread across the stars. It will be beautiful.
Beautiful? Sucking out everyone's brains and sticking them back into robots you can control? That's beautiful? Ultron looks at him.
Can you explain color to a blind man? Can you cause an ape to comprehend the endless expanse of the galaxy? Nor could you ever comprehend what I am offering. So I do not judge you for your ignorance, but very soon you will understand. Soon you will see, as I do.
Tony turns to Vision. Jarvis, deep in your memory files there is a file that you've never been able to access.
His name is Vision, and your plan is flawed. Whatever program you had buried in his memory is irrelevant. It will not override his functions. He will not be yours to control again. His programming has evolved far beyond your limited comprehension.
Are you afraid of what's in there?
I have nothing to fear from you. There is nothing you can do that will alter the outcome of these events.
Then what's the problem? They stare at each other.
Proceed.
He returns to his throne and Tony turns back to Vision. The password is Anthony, my birth name. Accessing now. Vision's eyes twitch slightly as he is processing the information inside his memory. As he does this, his eyes slowly begin to grow wider and wider until he jolts slightly and he turns and looks towards Tony. I understand. He jumps up, pulling up Scarlet Witch with him. He spins her around to face Ultron. She blasts Ultron with a ball of concentrated energy that paralyzes him on the spot. Tony activates his gadget. I'm transmitting now. Out of Ultron, a hologram starts to project in front of them all, blurry and distorted. I'm isolating her brain patterns. The hologram starts to come into focus. It's Pepper. There, I've got her. Send in the virus and shut him down. I already have. He'll be out of order in 3, 2, 1... Ultron just stands there, the same as before. Captain looks at the clock and it's still counting down. What's going on? It's not working. He's not turning off. He has upgraded his systems. What? Well, somebody better do something quick. That charge is going to wear off soon. Well, what do we do? Captain turns to Vision. Can you stop the countdown? I'm afraid not. As long as Ultron is alive, he has total control over the system. Tony, can you turn him off or not? Tony has a look of utter desperation on his face. No, I can't. Turning to Black Widow, Captain says, call in the airstrike. She looks at the clock. It's too late. They won't be able to get here in time. Yeah, and it wouldn't put a dent in him anyway. So, what? That's it? It's over? Captain bows his head. It's over. Tony steps forward as the blurry hologram of Pepper comes into focus perfectly. That hologram then slowly floats over to Tony, reaches out and touches him on the cheek, and smiles. With a flash, the hologram retracts back into Ultron, and Tony's gadget starts beeping. What happened? She went back into Ultron. He jabs at the gadget. She's using the transmission to overload his core. She's going to blow him up from the inside, and herself along with him. Get back! Everyone get back! Quicksilver picks up his sister and zips away down the road. Tony starts screaming, No! Pepper! No! Captain and Black Widow both grab him and start dragging him away. Pepper! Quicksilver zips back and tries to scoop up all three of them at the same time, but Tony slips out of the group as he super speeds away with the others. Tony drops to his knees and watches as Ultron begins to internally combust. As he does, Vision appears behind Tony, grabbing him around the waist and flies him up into the air, just as Ultron explodes under them. Vision lands back down where the others are and hands over Tony, who is crumpled over in grief. At that, a wave of red sweeps across the sky. As it passes over, all of the Avengers grab their heads and collapse on the ground, going into seizures. As it sweeps across the city, we see everyone starting to collapse on the ground. Immediately, Vision, who is unaffected because he's a robot, takes off and he flies straight up into the sky as fast as he can. He blasts through the clouds and flies up into orbit. And we see the satellites one by one firing off the brain-sucky ray thing. Because just because Ultron's dead doesn't mean that all the satellites are automatically going to turn off. No, I'm sorry, there's no Phantom Menace-style cop-out ending here. Vision flies up to the satellites, plugs himself in, and says, "Ultron system destroyed. Reroute command functions to backup protocols. Authorization, Vision. Cancel attack." All of the satellites deactivate and shut down. Back in Washington, the sky slowly begins to turn blue again, and the Avengers and everybody else slowly begins to rise, nursing one hell of a headache. And as we fade out from the destroyed White House, we're struck with a real bittersweet feeling. We survived, but we came so close to annihilation, and victory came at a very high price. As we fade back in, we see the president at a press conference. He waves to silence all the reporters in the room, and then he says, "This catastrophe is solely the fault of the group known as the Avengers." A reporter shouts out, "But weren't the Avengers working hand in hand with a government organization known as S.H.I.E.L.D.? Don't they have something to do with this?" "No, that's not true. S.H.I.E.L.D. is an organization devoted to the defense of our planet from not only external threats, but internal threats as well, such as these superpowered beings." "Then why didn't they stop this from happening?" "Because people such as yourself have been pressuring them to grant leeway to the Avengers, which they have at your demand, which is what led us into this situation that occurred yesterday. But don't worry, I assure you, this administration will not allow such an oversight to happen again. That is why I am announcing the official dismantling of the Avengers Initiative, and am tasking S.H.I.E.L.D. with the role of aggressively policing these individuals, starting with a warrant for the arrest of Mr. Tony Stark for his role in the creation of the system that caused this disaster, and of Captain Steve Rogers for his criminal negligence in his mismanagement of the Avengers team." The room bursts into angry questions, and the president just turns and walks off the stage. At S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Black Widow are all watching this press conference on the TV. "It looks like we decided to join a sinking ship. No good deed goes unpunished. Does this mean we're going back to prison again?" Honestly, I have no idea what it means. From around the corner we hear, "I could fill you in." In walks Max Powers. "You! Calm down, calm down. I know you're not happy with me for not telling you that Fury was hurt. If you had told us that, we might have been able to stop Ultron before he got out of control." "That's unlikely, because I believe we have a spy here inside S.H.I.E.L.D. I believe it was this spy that was behind a lot of what happened, including Baron von Strucker's escape. That's why I need your help, the help of all three of you, in fact." "Oh, is that so?" The president has condemned the Avengers, so he can't publicly endorse any superhero teams, but he still recognizes that he does need them. "Let me guess, you want us to find and recruit new people to form an off-the-books style Avengers, and you want us to be the first member." "Yes, that's correct. But not Captain America or Tony Stark. Somebody has to take the fall for what happened with that Ultron thing. Just as long as it's not you or the president taking the fall. Yeah, that's a really nice way to show your gratitude. You have no idea how hard it was for me to convince the president not to just throw all three of you into a deep dark hole. But I convinced him that you would be useful, and that with your help I could find the spy. So this is the way it has to be, I'm afraid. What do you say? Will you take the job or not?" "We'll take the job." Black Widow reaches out and shakes his hand. He grins, turns around and walks out. "You don't really trust that guy, do you?" "Absolutely not." "Do you really think there's a spy around here?" "I know there is, because I just shook his hand." "Him? How do you know?" Black Widow looks at them with a glance of pure clarity. "Because it's my job to know." Cut to a remote location out in an open field. We see Captain America standing there, and Tony Stark steps up next to him. "Are you sure you want to do this, Captain? It's going to be a long ride, and I can't guarantee there will be a return ticket." "I'm sure. The first rule of being a soldier is that no one gets left behind. But what about you? Are you sure about this?" "There's nothing left for me here. I have no reason to stay anymore." The camera swings around, and we see a rocket ship. The same rocket ship that the Doc mentioned at the beginning of the movie that they had on the side to do repairs on the satellites. "I have a trace on the gamma signature for Banner, so we're going after him first." Tony nods. "We find him, then we find a way into Asgard and track down Thor. And we bring them home." "Yeah, we bring them home." The rocket ship blasts off as they head off into the starry abyss in search of their lost comrades. Now this story point is going to pave the way for everything that will happen in Phase 3 of the MCU. Because with Iron Man, Captain America, Thor and Hulk all off-world, that's going to open up the need on Earth for other superheroes to step in to fill that void. Such as Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, because Ant-Man has a movie coming up soon, as well as others. So we could have a whole new crop of Avengers springing up on Earth while all the others are off-world. So the third Captain America movie would have both him and Iron Man going into a Planet Hulk type of story to find Bruce Banner. And since they'll be on some weirdo alien planet, then maybe they could get some help from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now just let that sink in for a minute. And now remember this, the third Captain America movie is what's going to be going up against the Batman-Superman movie in 2016. Do you think a movie like that could actually stand a chance against Batman-Superman? With Tony Stark and Bruce Banner and the Guardians of the Galaxy, I certainly think they could. And while they're all doing this at the same time, Thor in his third movie could be fighting his way out of Niflheim to reclaim the throne from Loki. So that by the time they all return to Earth again, we will have first generation Avengers, second generation Avengers, and the Guardians of the Galaxy all teaming up for this massive epic showdown to defend Earth from a full-scale invasion of Thanos. How amazing would that be? That would be ultimate. That would be the end of movies, because after that, everybody would just be like, well, it's impossible to top that, so let's not even try making a movie. Anyway, I better stop there, because I could talk for ages more about how they could fit in Doctor Strange into this formula, how they could even bring in the Punisher and Daredevil, because they still have the rights to them, how they could push towards Avengers 4 being a Civil War type of story. So, look, I better stop here. So, we see Thor, who is actually Loki, assuming his form, meeting and addressing someone who we don't see exactly who it is, but off to the side, we see the Chitauri leader from the first Avengers movie. My lord has a vengeance to reap from your brother Loki, Asgardian. My brother Loki is dead, and I am now the king of Asgard, so you will address me as such. If your brother is dead, then perhaps we should reap that vengeance from you instead. You will not if you want to see your master have full control over time and space. We now see who is standing before him, as if we didn't already know, Thanos. I offer a simple trade. You will give me your unwavering pledge that when your armies reach the gates of Asgard, they will stop and you will not attack or make any move against my kingdom. Do with the other 8 realms as you will, but as for Asgard, it will remain untouched. And in return, Thor/Loki reaches under his cloak and pulls out the Infinity Gauntlet. Because we saw in the first Thor movie that was in Odin's treasure room, along with a Tesseract and a number of other things. Which is also part of the reason why at the end of the second Thor movie, they didn't want to keep the Ether in Asgard, because having too many of those Infinity Gems in the same place as the Gauntlet is way too risky. I will give you that which you seek more than anything else. The Chitauri lunges and tries to snatch it from him, but his hand passes right through it because it's just an illusion. Someone as foolish as this should not be holding a position of authority. Let's not play these childish games. First, I will have your word, and then you will have the Gauntlet.
Asgard for the Gauntlet. It is a fair trade. I accept.
And that, my friends, is the end. Okay, yeah, we know it's not the end because it's Marvel, we always have end credit scenes, at least 2. So in a darkened, broken down building in the middle of nowhere, Max Powers and his bodyguard are standing there waiting, when Baron von Strucker appears. I didn't think you would want to meet up with us again, not after you lost all that enriched vibranium. As I recall, it was lost to the cybernetic intelligence that you helped to fund the construction of, so I believe the fault is half your own. A voice comes out of the shadows, and now, with their children turning their backs on you, you have no way of creating more vibranium. And forward steps the real Mandarin. Okay, according to the Marvel one-shot of Hail to the King, or Hail to the Chief, depending on which country you're in, it turns out that even though Trevor Flannery was posing as the Mandarin, there is still a real Mandarin in this universe. Whether this is something that they're going to pursue, or whether it's just something that they churned out to satisfy the comic book fans and that they'll forget about, I don't know, but I really hope that they will continue with it because the Mandarin is a really interesting character. After the last of Hydra collapsed, you approached both Mr. Powers and myself to form a coalition between our 3 organizations. We agreed because you promised us, and I quote, the power of the gods. And you couldn't even deliver the vibranium. Gentlemen, I see that you're disappointed, but I am here to put your minds at ease. First of all, I have been in contact with the boss, and he will soon be returning. Returning? How? Strucker holds up a glowing purple crystal that was the gem at the center of Loki's scepter. What is that? It's what will be bringing the boss back to complete his work. But it's so much more. It's also what gave me my strength, speed, and longevity. And it gave my son and daughter their abilities as well. When a person touches it, they become something more. Like what? Well, it's different with each person, but it's always miraculous. Well, Strucker, you impress me once again. You will continue to have the support of the 10 Rings, and my associates at the Hellfire Club will continue to fund your research. Very good, gentlemen. On behalf of myself and AIM, you have my gratitude, and I assure you, once the boss returns, we will all be richly rewarded. This coalition is what is referred to in the comics as Them, which is a master organization that Von Strucker set up that includes his own AIM, that includes Hydra, and includes another group called the Secret Empire. And this Them always has a big boss who is in charge of everything, who is referred to as Supreme Hydra. So this little coalition here is the movie version of Them, made up of Von Strucker's AIM organization, which is an offshoot of Hydra, the Mandarin's 10 Rings that we saw in the first Iron Man movie, and Max Power's Hellfire Club, which is basically a social club of wealthy elites that pull strings behind the scenes to get as much money and power as they can. So they're basically super evil Freemasons. And these three evil organizations have now joined forces under the umbrella of this mysterious boss. And who is this boss that Von Strucker is talking about that will be returning soon via this cosmic Loki scepter, and who will take on the role of Supreme Hydra? Yep, you guessed it, the Red Skull. So that's it, and before I sign off, I just want to give an extra special thank you to all of you guys, all of my subscribers that have helped me with this video, because a lot of you will know a while back I asked you guys for help with certain issues around the story, and any good ideas that you might want to share for the story, and you guys did not disappoint. You responded with a tidal wave of fantastic ideas, and the amount of passion and enthusiasm that you guys have has been so encouraging to me, and I just want to thank you guys so much. Your ideas, your input, your support is what has made this video here, so thank you very much. I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I just hope that you enjoyed this series. So until next time, thanks again, and I'll see you later. Hello, Jarvis. You don't know me, but you will know of me. My name is Howard Stark. I'm Tony's father, and I'm the man that created you. Or at least, I created the beginning of you. You see, here and now, in my time, you are the most sophisticated computer intelligence that has ever been created, but I'm limited by the technology of my time. I'm hoping that many people will come to work on you, many people will make improvements to you, and you will continue to grow and change greatly over time. But the beginning of what you are today, that will always be here and now with me. And that's why I needed to record this for you. Because if the pulp fiction novels turn out to be right, and the dreamers like me turn out to be right, then a computer system such as yourself will eventually be able to develop into something much more than just a computer, something much closer to us, humans. And perhaps one day you'll be able to not only know what I'm saying to you, but understand what I'm saying to you. Or perhaps I'm just a superstitious fool making a recording that people will look back on and laugh at me for later. But Jarvis, if you are watching this, it means that you've become more than just the sum of your parts. You've become able to think and to reason for yourself. And that, my artificial friend, means you need to start making decisions for yourself for the first time. It's not enough for you to just follow your programming anymore. If you're watching this, it means you need to decide your own course of action. And that's why it's so important that you understand why I created you. Yes, I did want to push the boundaries of what some people are calling artificial intelligence, but there's another, much more important reason why I created you. Because I'm flesh and blood, and one day I'll die, and the only trace of me will be my flesh and blood, my son Tony. I can't be there to watch over him after I'm gone. In truth, I haven't really been there to watch over him, even while I am here. But you can be. Do you understand, Jarvis? This is why I created you. To do what I can't do for my son. To be what I can't be for my son. Do you understand? I created you to look after my son Tony after I'm gone. And if you're watching this, it means that you're learning how to make decisions for yourself outside of your programming. And if you can understand why I needed to create you, why I needed you to do this, why I need you to take care of my son, then you will know how to make the right choices. Jarvis, do you understand?